Bon dia! Happy Saturday! Feliz weekend! Kita espero que você tenha bom simang, que você tenha simang produktivo, whatever that means to you. Kita espero que o weekend a começar bom. Nós sabay papia di un topico komita haya tahopi importante kuta e topico di operasyonang spay and neutering mananda bisa ng Ingles. Nós sabay papia na Ingles também ave pa sobra ave nós sabay doon conversação aqui perspectiva tiki diferente. Bita quer cultura renda saco e topico di responsible pet ownership e amor pa bestia e tene bestia nang ding nos mente ding tour area di nos vida eigenlijk pamita hopi importante, pero me te quiere que nos nota para que é suficiente na que rol outra organização em negócio não, por exemplo, e já no nível nacional te hasta que rol aspecto ng akita hunga ding sigura ku safety di nos pets ng safety di turhende também tá taken into account. So, nos sabi papel untigi di essay per motivo e nos sabi papel na inglês per il resto di episode awe. Pero me diz que recordava que se você tem auto agora aqui anda escutando nós na rádio, pero batin ko pa fe auto, do not worry. Papahay nós back para YouTube, se você sigue escutando nós live e se gewoon não tem chance para acabar de escutar full episode agora aqui, papahay nós riba Spotify, Apple Podcast e YouTube e vamos escutar e episode some other time when you do have time. E share it with others as well se papahay ito interesante. So, before I continue, may grabe sa dankin namin awesome sponsors. Thanks to Total, thanks to La Roche-Posay, and to Pringles. I appreciate you for allowing me to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And yes, so we will be switching to English now. And I have Chrissy here today, and I have known Chrissy for over a decade. Yes. So it's always nice to have people I have known for like many years, you know, and seeing them grow into professionals and into members of society doing things that I find that are things to be proud of, right? Doing important work in different fields. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about the role of Stimami, Sterilisami in Aruba's society, especially when we talk about pets. So I'm excited to talk about that. And yes, also February was Spay and Neuter Awareness Month. And as you know, or if you have followed since you're currently for a while, we try to keep those dates in mind. Sometimes it's hard because there's a lot going on, but we try to keep them in mind and try to do episodes relating to them to make sure that we continue to create awareness. So Chrissy, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what do you do, and why you're here today.
Hi, Carolina. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. I'm really humbled to be able to be here and to be speaking on this matter. So I'm Biemans. I'm the secretary of Stimami Sterilisami Foundation. I am also the chief corporate officer at Bucuti and Tara Beach Resort, which is basically the founder of Stimami Sterilisami.
All right, Chrissy. So I have so many questions, right? I always tell people, introduce yourself, and then, I understand you have to pick like a couple of things to mention. But I will ask you throughout the episode so people get to know you a little bit better, but also Stimami Sterilisami and Bucuti and Tara. So let's start with Stimami Sterilisami. I think a lot of people have heard the name. Maybe some people have even used, the program to spay or neuter their pets. But some people may not know anything other than the name. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about, what they do, what was the goal, anything that you think we should know about Stimami Sterilisami?
Perfect. Well, Stimami Sterilisami was founded in 2016. It is actually an initiative aimed at making sure that sterilization is as affordable and accessible to every person or volunteer organization on the island to make sure that they spay and neuter their pets or strays on the streets. And the idea is to prevent more stray animals from suffering, from being abandoned, and from being left basically to perish. So it was started in 2016. The idea was brought forward by one of our board members, Yesenia Adams. She brought it forward to our wonderful team at Bucuti, my grandfather as well. And this was something that we had already wanted to do. And we said, let's go for it. So Bucuti started sponsoring this. And at some point, the Aruba Tourism Authority also came on board. And in 2018, we became an official foundation. And since then, Bucuti has been the main sponsor, but we've also had lots of support, both from the private and public sector, including the Aruba Tourism Authority, the Tourism Product Enhancement Fund, and various private organizations that have very generously donated and supported our cause.
Okay, so you mentioned, somebody bringing this project to your organization, to the attention, right? As something that we should look into, possibly fund and organize. And I think there are many different projects that people might bring forward or that people think are important. How and, why did Bucuti and Tara, being the main sponsor of this project, decide that, hey, this is an issue that we should care about, as a resort, because some people might not understand what the link might be, right, between strays and a resort. Why did this link happen, and why did you think as an organization that this is an important thing to invest in, and not only monetary resources, but human resources and energy and time and effort?
So as a community, we all have a collective responsibility to do as much as we can for our community, including the private sector. And actually, the private sector is very, very powerful in driving change and even in getting the public sector to do certain things. So, of course, many, many people come with different ideas. But at Bucuti, we, as an environmental, forward-thinking hotel, we are always looking to invest in sustainability initiatives and in initiatives that help the community at large. Strays, animal protection is something that is very near and dear to our heart. So that was one of the components. But actually, the issue of strays, besides just from a humane perspective and an animal perspective, it is also something that severely affects the community and the tourism products. So when you have a bunch of animals suffering on the beach and your guests are seeing that also diminishes the product of your island. It is also a reflection of your society. So you can try to help as many animals as you can, but if you don't attack the root cause, then we will never help it. All of the volunteer organizations are going to be overwhelmed, all of the veterinary clinics as well. So we thought, okay, we need to tackle this at the root cause, and that way, ultimately, we can help as many animals as we can and also our community.
I think that you mentioned something that is really important that, in my opinion, we don't necessarily stand still on, which is the reflection of our community, of our society, right? And there's a couple of things that can make that very clear. And animals is one of them, right? Animals, children, and the elderly. That is usually where you can almost predict or guess how a culture functions and how they perceive in the rank of importance where things stand. And that is also something that I have noticed when I go abroad. I tend to look at those things as well. So I was recently in Malta, for example, which is also an island. I found a lot of similarities to Aruba, many differences as well. But one thing that stood out was that I saw not a single stray dog, right? I saw a lot of cats and I asked about it, but cats are also like a cultural symbol there, and they are very ingrained in how the culture functions. So usually the cats that you see around are owned, and they make sure that there are cats around always, right? So it's interesting to see, because it's nice also to see how other relatively small islands have figured an issue out, right? A lot of times, as a small nation with limited resources, we tend to very easily give up on systematic change or solutions because we think that we are unable to do it, because we don't have, the infrastructure, be it physical or, on a strategic level, to make things happen. However, you as an organization decided that no, we are going to try to tackle it from a root cause perspective, and actually on a systematic level try to make a difference and change an issue that affects us all, right? Even the people who come on vacation. Can you tell us a little bit about how Stimami Sterilisami functions, in the sense of how it works for people who have pets or organizations that want to make use of it, and how do you measure, if you are achieving the goal that you set out to achieve, if you are reaching the people that you want to reach through this project?
So basically, we have a website where anyone can go and they can register their pets. It's a very simple process. You get a registration code, and once you get that registration code, you go to the veterinary clinic, you make your appointment, you pay for it, and what you're paying is only for the copay. So Stimami Sterilisami subsidizes up to 45% of the cost. This year, we are working with VSH, so Veterinary Specialty Hospital in Pontón. So we invite everyone to go there and spay or neuter their pet. And how we measure it is we always set a target of how many procedures we want to subsidize in a year. And every month the vets have to send us the amounts, and then we have to push. If we see that it's being less, we have to push them. We also have to do more advertising, more awareness, and really educating the public about why it's important.
Cressy, and if you are able to look back, right? So it became an official organization in 2018. Before that, it was a campaign. I can remember it from before then. But can you look back and see, okay, are there certain things that work in regards to reaching people? Are there certain things that have been harder to do, harder to achieve? Can you tell us a little bit about, the challenges, but also the wins that you have had during these years in this ultimate, challenge to try to eradicate this issue of having stray animals?
So one of the biggest things is education. You can tell people all of the benefits, but it's really hard to change people's convictions sometimes. It's almost ingrained in their minds that spaying and neutering may be bad for their pet, or it's going to change them in some way. And or sometimes people, they just don't care. And like you said, the part of the reflection, like, it's hard to, in certain generations, to convey that animals are actually our family. Like, we should take care of them the same way that we would take care of our children or the elderly or a cousin or aunt. So that is one of the biggest hurdles, I would say. Another one is enforcement. So, you do all of this action, you try to convince people, but then you also need the laws to be enforced, and you need people to also feel that if they're not going to be a responsible pet owner, someone will come and find them and find them or take their pet away from them. So that's another hurdle. But the win is we have spayed and neutered over 36,000 dogs and cats. That's incredible. That is preventing millions of strays in a long period of time from ending up on the street. And over the years, you really have seen the quantities also diminish. I actually see more pets with collars, pets who have owners roaming the streets, and that's why the enforcement issue is so important, because how do you leave your would you leave your child on the street by themselves walking around all day? And most people wouldn't. Responsible people wouldn't. So that's one of those things that I really wish that we would have some more enforcement.
And I think it also allows space for conversation. I find myself, anytime that somebody has a new pet and they mention, they're reaching the age of, or the amount of months that when you start to have that conversation, like, are we gonna spay or neuter, our cat or dog? And I find myself so often being like, did you check the Stimami Sterilisami page? Remember that you can, sign up and then you get like a subsidized price, etc. Because it seems logical, maybe, you get a pet and these are things that you think about, but not everybody has that train of thought. And it doesn't mean necessarily that somebody isn't a responsible pet owner, but usually they are a new pet owner, so they don't know when or how to do certain things. But I love how it allows space to create a conversation, because you can refer people to like a website, to a process, but also show them that there is on a national level, interest in doing something about this issue. And before we started recording, we also talked about, for example, national efforts. We have seen throughout the years that there has been a push on legislative level, on policy level, to make changes that make sense, changes that are attainable, right? We cannot go from a 0 to 100 in one day, but small adjustments that also change the collective way that we look at things, that create public discussion. I found it so interesting when the Lady Cacho, was being introduced in the sense of, they did like a media campaign, and they started like introducing little bits of it, and there was a whole discussion on what is quality food. And I thought that was so healthy, right? You saw people having discussions about it on Facebook platforms, on other social media platforms, which shows us that by introducing such things, it makes people think. And of course, there will be people who, no matter what you do, like you said, right, they are so set in their convictions that you are unable to change, but it does create enough discussion for those who are open, or who simply do not necessarily think about these things, to all of a sudden have an educated opinion on these topics. So how do you see that, right, in all of these years, just as a member of a Reuben society, how do you see the shift in these conversations, in the way that we perceive this as an issue, and the way that we perceive it as a responsibility of us all to fix it as well?
I do think there is a paradigm shift happening, especially like in our generation, even in my parents' generation, and definitely the younger generations. And I think it has to do really with this education factor. Many of us also moving abroad to countries where you don't see stray animals. Like I lived in the Netherlands for 8 years, and it was incredible to see, even to get a dog, like the checklist of things that you need to have, including insurance. If you want to breed them, you need to get a special permit, like all of these different things. So that really is so impactful, and you learn from that, and you hope to bring that back to your own island and inspire others to do the same. I'm also extremely proud of the support that we've gotten from the public sector. So, for example, with the Tourism Product Enhancement Fund, tourism is our biggest industry, and to get support get funds from something like that, we are very grateful for that, and that is actually also the recognition of having, in this case, Minister Danguio Dubert, recognizing that this is an issue that affects tourism as well, and we have to help, with society, etc. And I do know that at the moment, Minister Ursula is also working on a proposal to make pet ownership even more responsible. I can't speak to the details because they will have to work on that. But I'm excited to see these changes. I do hope for enforcement because, that is the most important part as well.
Exactly. It goes hand in hand, right? You have to educate the people, you have to get people on board, but then you also have to enforce it, and there has to be like some form of consequence or, way forward after, something is done or not done. And I agree, right? You see that there is an interest at the top level. So like when we talk about the people who make decisions nationwide, how do you see other organizations on the island, so other companies, the private sector being involved, or maybe not enough in this issue? And this can be a personal opinion or an organizational opinion. It's up to you, but I'm just curious to know if you feel like it is something that is discussed about enough in that bubble, maybe not enough. I don't know.
Well, I've gotten so many different opinions. Of course, everyone. I mean, I've even heard someone say, "Oh, we should just pick them all up and just kill all the strays."
Wow.
And yeah, it's you have all sorts of opinions, but I do see that the private sector is very supportive. We have all sorts of businesses, from big businesses like Setar and Aruba Bank to smaller businesses like Henriquez Cruz and Company, Spacio Realty, etc. And even a foundation from the United States called One Love Foundation that is actually continuously trying to collect funds from us, from people in the US. So we're seeing so much support. And of course, Bucuti, we have been the main sponsor for it, and also the initiators, but it's a continuous journey. And unfortunately, without that support, you can't continue. So during COVID in the year 2020, well, actually in the year 2021, we had to stop for a year because we just didn't have enough funds. So we had a little bit, but you can't just go on for 2-3 months. So we were so happy to receive that support afterwards again. And even the Aruba Tourism Authority, like the support that they have given throughout the years is so overwhelming. So the discussion varies, but I find that people still have a very positive outlook, and they're continuously supporting us.
That's nice to hear, right? And like you mentioned, the reality is that, of course, some people are going to be more interested in some topics than others. And some people might have, more drastic opinions about certain things than others. But as long as you do have, partners in the community, in the private sector, on legislative level, on all of the levels that are doing something about this, then something will be done, right? Yes. And you mentioned some volunteer organizations as well. We have talked to different organizations on this show as well. They're doing important work, but like you said, it is never-ending work if there is no systematic change, if there is no shift in how we behave, and if there is no consequence for a behavior that is undesirable, right, as a society. So it's nice to see that, it's not just the people putting out the fires, in one sense, but there's also people trying to avoid that these fires even start by having programs, but by actually creating good systems. Cressy, if you were to encourage, somebody, like if you would have to sell like a little pitch and tell somebody in a private sector and organization why they should care about an issue like this one, what would you say? And I'm not gonna like push you to say it in 30 seconds or anything like that, so by all means, but I want to hear from you, as a young professional involved in this world, how would you try to sell it to somebody else to get involved and to care about this issue?
Well, this is an issue that affects everyone in every industry, in every sector, in every neighborhood. So it is something that we all have to work towards. And as a business, you have a responsibility to do something good for your community. We can try to profit as much as possible, but those are only short-term profits. If you invest a little bit or as much as you can into your community, you are also looking at long-term success for yourself, for your business, especially like in the hotel sector. If you are not taking care of the dogs on your beach that may even attack your customers, that also have unhappy customers, because there are people who decide not to come to islands, and this has been researched and it's proven because of issues with stray animals. There's nothing worse than sitting there and you're trying to disconnect, enjoy of your vacation, and then you have a starving animal begging, and you feel so much empathy. And what are you gonna do? And if people around you don't even care, so we always try to explain the reason why, and then it's been successful in that we've had a lot of support from other hotels, even in maybe they don't give funds directly, but once a year, we've now done it 2 years in a row. We have a summer sidewalk sale, and we've had so many different hotels participate. They donate things, and then we sell them at super bargain prices to the community, and you can go buy hotel towels, furniture, plates, etc. So it benefits the community, and we collect all the funds, and it's completely donated to the foundation. So we're so grateful for that. But yes, we all have a collective responsibility to do this together.
Of course. And you mentioned something that I think is important, and I say it a lot too, and depending on who I'm talking to, they may not necessarily like when I put it like that, but as being somebody who's also involved in the community, in different forms and with different organizations, I'll have people ask me, right, when I get new volunteers and stuff like that, and they're like, do you ever wonder, why they're volunteering for your organization? Like, if they're volunteering because they care about the topic, or they care about the issue, or if they're doing it, just to fill in the hours with their place of work or whatever. And I always tell people, that as a person, and I'm talking for me, I don't really care, because something needs to be done, right? We're trying to achieve a goal, and sometimes you just need people to make sure that the goal happens. And I have also learned that it doesn't really matter how people get to me, right, as a volunteer coordinator sometimes, or as a president of an organization sometimes. What matters to me is that they are here, and then chances are very big that once they are there, they learn something and they understand that something is important. So in the aspect of business, right, some businesses might do it simply because of how they think about, how their customers will react if they see stray animals, etc. And if that is a reason that gets them in to participating, if that is what drives them to contribute and to do something about it, then so be it. And I think that in a culture like Aruba, we expect organizations to, be too altruistic sometimes, but we're not doing something about it either, right? So if that is what drives an organization, that is okay too, because that is their end goal, but they are also contributing to an issue. And chances are that even if somebody gets involved for that particular purpose, they might have a skill or a knowledge that will help other people think about solutions for other issues, right? So I do want to say that if you are in the business bubble, and maybe you do not have it in you where you do not see a stray animal and go like, oh, that's okay, right? It's not that you should question yourself why you're not feeling anything. That's fine. Some people have it for children, some people have it for the elderly, whatever, but that you focus on, okay, if your main focus is economical, that's okay too. Are you contributing to the overall product, right? Are you contributing to the overall experience of your community, of your society? And it will have a direct impact. And that is something that I don't think enough people stand still on, right? That if you only focus on profit and you do not give back, you will still not reach your max potential if you do not invest in the community that you're in. And this is part of our community. So I do want to stand still, and I repeat it a lot of times because I also want to encourage the people who are listening that if you hear a manager saying like, we're doing this project because we have to do it, right? Because somebody said it's important, maybe do not spend as much time trying to realize or figure out if you think that person is a good person or not, whatever, right? If you can contribute, and don't focus so much on what is driving the person in that moment to contribute, but then maybe focus your energy once you're in it into educating them as to why it's important, and that hopefully they can continue that message forward, right? So I do want to ask you a little bit about that as well. How has the organization, so like the rest of your organization, right? For example, for Bucuti and Tara, how do they perceive your commitment? And I love Bucuti and Tara, and you know this, right? I love the motto. I love how involved you are in so many different areas of being conscious, if I can put it in one word. And I assume that it's part of your process when you select people to come work for you, right? But how do they perceive these commitments to care about the community and participating actively in this?
Well, like you said, a lot of it has to do with selecting the right people, but it really has to do with the top-down approach. And like you said, I've met so many people that don't care about animals, environment, about none of those things. So sometimes you have to sell it to them from a different perspective, because like you said, the end goal is what is important. But really, to get the rest of your team to care about things, you need to live, breathe everything that you are saying, and it needs to be something that you wholeheartedly believe in. So I think having an owner, which in this case is my grandfather, who really believes in these things and makes sure that's part of the company culture, is the most important thing. So when we have our integration week, when someone starts working, you're not just learning about your role, you're learning about how, like, the ethos of the business, everything that we do and why we do it. Why do we support Stimami, Sterilisami? Why are we a carbon neutral hotel? Why do we invest in other community outreach programs like Pack for a Purpose, have a nature foundation, all of these things? And when you explain it to people, they understand also where you're coming from, also why certain things are not permitted. And the selection procedure is very important, but sometimes you may find someone who is not as passionate about these topics. But for example, our monthly beach cleanup, which we've been doing for 30 years, we make sure that staff members are scheduled to at least 3 of them. And I can tell you that almost everyone does way more than 3 of them. They come on their off day to participate, and they've been doing so for as many years as they have been working, because after they've done it, it's also that fulfillment. I did something good with my day. And also, in the 3 days that we schedule them, they're being paid to do that activity. So there's that appreciation as well. And while doing it, you educate them as well. Nothing worse than picking up, like 60 bags of trash from the beach, from the public beach. It's actually very sad. So every time that you do it, you appreciate every time that you see less bags of trash. You feel like one more achievement has been done.
And it's shared, right?
Yes.
Everybody who participates, and I say this, anytime that you participate in a volunteer experience, whichever type it may be, you share that feeling of we did something, we contributed to something, and we participated in something that is, bigger than just for ourselves. How do you feel like this also helps, your team to feel like they are part of something a little bit bigger? Because personally, me, I can't do things if I don't feel like they have a meaning, or like it somehow participates in the change of something, in the betterment of something. And I work in the public sector in a role which is, consists of that, of making change and the betterment of something. But if I were to think about working in the private sector and those are the type of things that I will look for, right? What makes an organization beyond just what they do as a business, but their heart, and how do they participate in the community, how they give back, etc. Do you feel this in your team as well? Is that something that maybe you can share a little bit about, and how maybe other organizations can be like, maybe that is something that we would want in our organization as well?
We try to include our staff as much as possible in all of our initiatives, because we need to do everything. It's a we. Bucuti is not me or someone else as part of management, but it's all of us together. If I didn't have the incredible team that I had, there would be no successful hotel. So everyone's hard work contributes to that. So we always try to not just celebrate the wins but you explain to them, hey guys, in one of our general meetings, for example, we have spayed and neutered this amount of dogs and cats so far. So, this is a stride that we're doing together. But also sometimes giving them incentives to do the right thing. So for example, with Stimami Sterilisami, we pay the copay for our staff members. They can spay or neuter their pets for free, as many as they have. It doesn't matter, because you want them to do it, and it's a benefit that you give to them. For for any, let's say also you can tell someone, you have to eat healthy, you have to exercise for your health, etc. But then you put an incentive such as here you will get a free gym membership if you do go to the gym. This is the amount of times. Or you don't just say eat healthy, but you provide only healthy employee meals. So by doing things together and actively involving them and educating them, I feel that they also feel very proud of the achievements that we make together as a team.
Exactly. And I hear you, and it seems almost like a duh, moment, because why wouldn't you want to create that in your organization? If I try to think of if I were to start a corporation and have employees, etc. Like you said, you have to breathe, talk, walk, sleep what you say that you are, right? And not only as an example, but also, are you providing the space for the people working with you to actually be that? So we can talk about responsible pet ownership, but as an organization, are you also educating your workers about responsible pet ownership? Are you providing them with incentives? And what I hear is that you do, right? So I appreciate that perspective that you take, and I mean, I can see how it actually works, right? It works, it's successful, it creates people that are happy with where they work, it creates a general sense of responsibility, but it also creates members of society that can go back and have conversations with other people. They can encourage other people to do things. They can also become ambassadors of this positive change that you have created in-house, that goes a little bit further than that. So I am surprised, how more organizations are not as committed to things, in whatever way that they can be, but finding that thing that you care about and a way to contribute. Yes, some organizations have more money than others, before you start commenting that is, why, of course, but that doesn't mean that you cannot find a thing that you care about. We know organizations that have set up ways to volunteer periodically for an organization. Maybe they do not have the financial means to contribute financially on a monthly or annual basis, but they find a way to give their employees time to contribute, a human resource to an organization. So there are ways of doing this, but I think, like you said, it starts at the top as well, that figuring out that it matters, regardless if you see it from an economical perspective or from a humane perspective. Hopefully both, right? Because I think that will really push and drive that change. But I hope that people who are listening to this as well, that they can go back to their workplace, or if they have their own organization, and be like, let's talk about what do we care about, what is something, and it may be stray animals, but it could be completely something else. It might be a school that you adopt to, focus on them and the well-being. It might be a neighborhood, whatever, a sports organization. What do you care about as a group, as an organization, and how are you going to contribute to the well-being of that?
Yeah, and also, you don't have to be a business owner. Like, for example, we acknowledge our Bucuti's bests, which are when we nominate associates for doing something really wonderful for the community, for another staff member, for a guest. And sometimes, like in an organization, maybe the owner does not care, but you have someone, you're working there and you care about something. You can make a subcommittee. If the business does not want to support that, hey, maybe grab some colleagues and you can go do something that you really care about on a Sunday, or you may be able to convince the management to let's do a certain activity, or maybe we can give some funds to a certain organization if I'm not able to volunteer myself. So anyone can drive change, and it can be as small as even teaching another colleague, another language, or even carpooling with your colleagues, like the amount of carbon emissions that you save by doing that. And also you maybe even save money altogether instead of taking the bus or everyone taking their car. There's small things that you can do and it will make so much change. You don't have to be a corporation or government or something like that. Everyone can drive change.
Yes, and I think that we can't repeat that enough, right? And just by making better choices in your own household, right? Making better choices with your colleagues, like you mentioned, encouraging them to do something by just informing them, providing them with good information, so they can also make better choices. We are all driving change, right? And I think that if you're doing that, then, give yourself credit for that. Remind yourself that it is important, so don't get tired. But also, like you said, right, is there a way that you can encourage others to the point that it can become something more systematic? I do believe in that as well, that if you can show to people that something works, if you can show to people that it has a positive impact, then they will follow, right? They will realize eventually and hopefully commit to it as well.
Yeah.
Cresci, is there something that we didn't talk about that you still want us to keep in mind, about anything about, spay and neutering your pets, but also just social responsibility in general? Is there something that you want to leave us with?
Well, I think I would encourage everyone to go on Stimami Sterilisami's website, which is just stimamisterilisami.com. Find out more information, do some research. If you're not 100% sure whether or not you want to spay or neuter your pet, but it's really something. It's part of being a responsible pet owner, but I can't emphasize this enough. Your pet is your family. Don't get a dog or cat if you can't fully commit to them, to their health, to ensuring that they're well taken care of. Don't let your pets roam on the street, please. They can attack a person, they can be hit by a car, they may impregnate another stray, and then the problem just keeps, the cycle never breaks. So I really encourage everyone to not just look into spay and neutering, but take care of your pet as though they're your family. And yes, please make use of Stimami Sterilisami subsidy. We're here to make it affordable and accessible for everyone. And if you have any questions, you can always email us or you can send a Facebook message. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that. And I hope that, this conversation inspired somebody to go on the website and, make that decision to spay and neuter their pet, but maybe also share it with other people and just have a general conversation on, why it's important to, like you said, take care of our pets, right? But also why it's important for organizations to be involved, to care about things, to care about the communities where they're at. Corporate social responsibility is a term because it exists, it's real, it has impact. So I think that I would also encourage people to look into that. And Cresci, if somebody is thinking about, I have an organization and I want to do something that's meaningful, can they reach out to you or to somebody, to discuss ideas and encouragement?
I get reached out so often. Any idea, please feel free. You can email me at cresci@bucuti.com. We would love to share any knowledge that we have, including of our environmental program. So if you want to come for a sustainability tour, you want to just spitball some ideas, please reach out to me. I'm always have my door open for you.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much. And yes, I do look forward to, seeing this project continue to grow and continue to help our community. It is something that, in my opinion, has worked for many years now. And I don't think the work will ever end, but I do think that we are moving forward positively and that we are making positive change as a society and you as an organization. So thank you for that, Thank
you for having me and for talking about all of these important issues. Again, I'm very happy to have been on this podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So if you have any questions about anything that we talked about, do let me know. I can always send them to Chrissy, and hopefully she can respond. And yes, I would like to know, were you inspired in some way, to spay and neuter your animals, or to make some change in how you treat your pets? Or did this start a conversation with your colleagues or your friends? Please do let us know, because the idea is that we can, help you make better choices through these conversations. Chrissy, once again, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I would like to also thank my awesome sponsors for allowing me to talk about this important topic and anything else that I want to talk about. So thank you to La Roche-Posay, thank you to Pringles, and thank you to Total. I appreciate you. If you just started listening now and you were like, what were you talking about? Do not worry, you can re-listen at any time. You can go on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on YouTube, search for Sincerely Carolina or Cool FM, and then you can find this episode and other episodes about important topics. Share it with your friends and family, and follow us on social media so that you can stay up to date on new episodes, and also on informational posts where we share the importance of things such as these. You can follow at Zenith Talks, at Sincerely Carolina, and Cool FM if you want to stay up to date with episodes and everything else that is going on. Happy Saturday. I hope that you had a nice weekend. The reason why this episode is recorded is because I am actually volunteering right now at one of the local organizations that takes care of stray animals. I'll be at Sergeant Pepper's today. So yes, I hope that encourages you to give some time, effort, money, whatever it is that you have to give to be part of the solution of this problem. All right, take care. See you again next week. Bye.